watches this young girl try saying that speech is violence, but Ben Shapiro is not having any of that BS. Watch as he dismantles her argument piece by piece. This right here is a masterclass.
When my speech could incite violence?
Well, do you feel that a lot of your speech could incite the same kind of violence?
I mean, you heard my
Donald
speech
Trump-
tonight. Do you feel that my speech could incite violence?
Well,
I mean that seriously. That's an honest question.
I know you're asking honestly. I feel that for me, as an individual, it isn't, but I could see how a lot of your points I really disagreed with. I literally have a list of
And that's
questions
fine. I
have
mean,
for
that's the good
you.
part, right? Where we disagree and we can have a conversation.
I just was wondering in terms of, and what I mean by inciting violence is encouraging the same people who believe in like your transphobic beliefs, even that like homophobia is a sin based on your religious beliefs. Do you believe that because of what you say, you can encourage a lot of people to act on those beliefs?
So I have a very strong standard with regard to incitement, and I'm very consistent about this. If I'm not telling somebody to commit violence, I am not inciting them to violence. I've held the standard for Barack Obama when he was saying anti-police things, and then somebody went and shot up some police officers in Dallas. I said that's not Barack Obama's fault. When a Bernie Sanders supporter went and shot up a congressional baseball game, I said that's not Bernie Sanders' fault because Bernie Sanders wasn't calling for that. Political debate requires that you talk to people and people take your words as what they mean, not as an excuse to go and do violence. I've never called for violence, nor would I. As far as the idea that my words are some sort of attack, a violent attack, for example, on folks who are transgender, my view—
I'm not saying they're
I know, but
violent
I'm responding to the people who are not you who might say that. Okay? So the idea that I am transphobic, for example, this is a bizarre kind of attack in the sense that I don't know that I've ever exhibited phobia of trans people. I'm not afraid of trans people.
Well, transphobia is more along the lines of prejudice against the trans
So I think that I actually think that your first characterization was right. I think that transphobia is really disagreement with the basic principle that the trans community is trying to purvey, which is that people's sex is malleable, that people can move from male to female, and that it is my job, objectively, to now call them the name they wish to be called, and to teach my children that men can be women and women can be men. I fundamentally disagree with that point. Now, with that said, is everybody in the United States entitled to the same rights? Of course, but your right does not extend to forcing me to call you what you want me to call you. That's not the way this works. That violates my freedom of speech. So in interpersonal relationships, if I were out to dinner with a trans person, would I make a point of noting their proper biological sex? No, because that would be impolite. When I'm talking about the general principle of is a man a woman or is a woman a man, the answer is I will say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman and a he is a he and a she is a she. And if I'm in a public debate with somebody, I will say the same thing.
I do want to clarify that when I meant I wasn't trying to say disagreement, I was relating it to the same definition of homophobia, which is prejudice, or I tried to say discrimination.
Right. So I think that again, homophobia. There are some people who actively want to do violence to people who are gay. Right. I mean, those people are not me or anybody that I agree with. Obviously, I've never at any point in my entire career ever advocated violence, God forbid, against anybody in a civilized society. That's not something that I believe in, and I think it's evil. As far as I think again, your original definition of transphobia actually is better applied here as well. I think it's disagreement with certain principles that the homosexual community wishes to espouse.
What I was saying was that's not what I was. I was instead
I know,
of saying
and I'm saying that I agree
really
with your original definition and not your definition. So the definition that you made.
No, I'm not saying it's mine. It's one that I Googled that I found.
Right.
So,
and I think that definition is wrong, and I think that the one that you Freudian slipped was right. Is what I'm saying.
So I'm saying based on the institution of, I don't want to say the institution of Google because that's an extremely general thing to say, but in terms of as soon as you search transphobia, homophobia, this is what comes up.
Right, and
Do you feel like even though you're disagreeing with transphobia, with the trans community, which I believe we all have our own disagreements, I'm asking, do you feel that the fact that with your disagreement, you're inherently through the institutions that have provided these definitions, discriminating against trans community.
And I'm
encouraging other people to follow.
So
I know
here's
it's a long question, but I had to encapsulate a lot of things.
So here's what I'm saying. I disagree with either their definition is wrong or it's overly broad in its application.
Okay.
So if the idea is that if I say a man is a man and a woman is a woman is inherently transphobic, that's not discrimination, that's disagreement. If they say that's discrimination, they're overly applying their own label.
I think when you say like they're mentally ill, like that
Well,
gives off.
I have said, and I will continue to maintain, that gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder, whichever DSM you choose to use, is a mental illness. That is, and again, God forbid that it should be said with any animus, because this is not said with animus. When people are suffering, these are clearly folks who are suffering. When people are suffering, you shouldn't be saying stuff with animus. I'm not saying that as a gotcha to people who are transgender. The point that I'm making is that when a society begins treating folks who have mental illness as though they are representing an objective reality, they are doing no service to the people who actually suffer from a mental illness. My grandfather suffered from schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. He was institutionalized. If the doctors had said to him, Nate, you're fine. We believe that the radio is actually talking to you. That is not a service to him. That would have been terrible for him. Right? They put him in an institution. They gave him lithium, and it helped. Now, I'm not saying there's even a great solution for folks who have gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria, because the solutions that I've seen, including transgender surgery, are not intensely effective from all the studies that I've seen. It's a tragic, tragic situation. But the solution is not to redefine as a society what sex means along anti-biological lines. As far as the homophobia point, it's my own religious belief about the sinful nature of particular people's behavior should have no impact on how you act in a free country or how you think. It's a free country. Do what the hell you want.
You know what? For all the differences I have with that young woman right there, I actually respect how civil and how she was able to listen to Ben Shapiro's side without constantly interrupting. Because if you watch a lot of college debates nowadays, the college student thinks they have all the answers, and they'll just talk over anybody who has a different opinion to themselves. And that's not the way to learn. That's not the way to educate oneself. Isn't it so ironic that all these college students who are there to learn believe they have all the answers and they don't need to listen to anybody else? Isn't that why you're in school? But the way Ben Shapiro and this woman handled this discussion is how all discussions should be had. We need to have more respect with one another and stop demeaning the other side just because we have differences. We live in a world where if you just say common sense stuff, like there are two genders in the world, Jesus Christ is Lord, you say men can never be female, female can never be a man, that right there is somehow hateful speech. I don't understand, nor will I ever abide by that logic. Because if you can let people brainwash and manipulate your own minds, then you don't really own anything in this life. Like if COVID taught you one thing, it's that the government will step in and force you to do things whether you like it or not. They were forcing people to get injections even though they didn't want to, but they would lose their jobs, they wouldn't be able to fly, they wouldn't be able to go into restaurants, go to the movies. This was blackmail. By forcing people to tailor their speech to certain audiences, I don't abide by that whatsoever. I think you should be able to say whatever the heck you want to say, and if you have an issue with it, why don't we have a debate and a discussion? We'll talk it through and we'll have a civil debate. That's how you should conduct yourself in a civil society. But when they want to say you can and cannot say certain things, that is when you truly lose all your freedom in life. And we were facing an existential threat before Elon Musk took over Twitter and X, because if you said something wrong on social media, you would be kicked off. You would not have your voice. You would not have the ability to speak in a public forum like social media anymore. It is an absolute travesty. And if you think America is bad, just look at what's happening over the pond in the UK. There are thousands of people locked up in prison to this very day just because they said something the government doesn't like. Speech is not violence. I don't care what they tell you. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. How do you think Ben Shapiro handled this? Do you actually believe that speech is violence? Let me know. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.